Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
You know, John, there are a lot of people who are off today. I mean, what are we doing working? It's Good Friday.
I mean, the markets are closed. All the schools are off today. And you know, now, Brad, I was thinking about something that would get you ginned up because I thought, well, should I even mention this to Brad? And the answer is yes. On Tuesday, you know the number of districts that are closed because of Election Day?
Are they closing a bunch of school districts?
Francis Howell is closed on Tuesday. Parkway School District's closed on Tuesday.
Why they do that?
Well, Brad, because you need to have the school free and clear for elections.
Well,
you have people coming in and out of Missouri schools to vote, to exercise their voice in democracy, Brad. You can't have people, learning on Election Day.
John, I mean, I grew up, I think I can remember way back when. I mean, I don't know about you. You were, some years behind me in the Hazelwood School District, but I remember, Voters Day, Election Day, we'd see all the people come. Matter of fact, sometimes my dad would show up. I'd go, oh, my dad's voting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, the only thing that sucked about it is at Larimore Elementary, they always used the gym, and I lived for gym class.
Yeah.
And because we weren't able to go into the gym, particularly if it's chilly out.
Right.
Like if you can go outside for gym, that's fine. But there were days, Brand, where we would have gym in the classroom, like we'd watch a movie or something.
I know.
And it's like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, couple things to talk about. You mentioned something in the very end of your top three there, the self-checkout thing. And I know you watch the stock market stuff. You're very much into that. You're looking at the financial statements. It is across the board that almost all the big retail companies are totally rethinking the self-checkout thing. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah, they are. From the biggest names to the smallest names,
yes,
Brad.
Already there is a Home Depot that I frequent from time to time, which, once again, has already eliminated the self-checkout. Now, the only problem that bothers me about that situation is sometimes, like, for example, I was in that very store last night. I needed some 832 machine screws, okay? They cost me with tax $1.95. I had to stand in line behind a guy with, a whole cart with a lumber.
And an old lady with a checkbook.
Well, not necessarily that, but it's to the point where, like, if the self-checkout would have been still intact, I could have been in and out of that checkout in under a minute. You scan the thing, $2, you put my money in the little machine that sucks the dollar bills in, boom, I'm out the door, zoom, gone. I read this story. I don't know if it's true or not. Have you heard this? To me, it sounds bizarre what Walmart's considering doing with the self-checkout thing.
No, I haven't heard. What is it?
Once again, I've read this. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if this is. It could be The Onion, or it could be Babylon Bee stuff, but it's got enough information into it to the point where I thought maybe that might be the case. They're thinking about offering like a Amazon Prime kind of experience where, if you pay Walmart $98 a year, you can use the self-checkout.
No way. I hadn't heard that. Well, that sounds realistic, though, Brad.
Well, the idea being is that, and there's other perks that come with it. It's just sort of like, the deal with what they have with if you're in Prime, you get the Prime Video, and you get stuff like that, and you get next day shipping or fast shipping and stuff like that. And supposedly that's the angle that Walmart's going after, is that they say, okay, fine, let's create this essentially upper class of shopper. And it's to the point where it's like people are like, well, I'm a Prime member of Amazon. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, well, everybody is now. Right. But I see your point, Brad.
Okay, and some of the stores, they're talking about, how the shrinkage, they call it shrinkage in retail, it's just to the point where it's like $1 billion with a B dollar problem. Now, the crazy part of this is with the self-checkout, is it to the point where people are making mistakes, or is it just like, okay, I'm going over here, I got a basket full of 5, I got my shopping cart which got 6 things in it, but I'm just going to forget to scan that 6th thing, which is, if I'm at Schnucks, it's a T-bone steak, which is like, $20 or something like that.
Yeah.
Is it willful? Do you think it's
willful?
willful?
Yeah, it's absolutely willful. Also, I hadn't heard about the Walmart plan, but what's genius to me about it is because you're easily able to handle complaints that say, well, I really like self-checkout. Hey, we understand. And for less than $10 a month, you can continue to enjoy self-checkout. But also, it cuts the riffraff out, because anybody who's willing to pay, and somebody will dispute this, but if you're willing to pay $100 to use self-checkout, and the kicker is you're giving Walmart your name, your phone number, your debit card information, probably your photo. They're going to know when you're there and what you're buying. And when their video camera, whenever they do their random checks, or they probably do it with machine learning and AI now, if you're standing there and they have their very good cameras and you only run up 1 avocado when you got 5 avocados, they know that Brad Hildebrand with debit card number X and this collaborating photo just stole 4 avocados.
Well, I mean, and I think your point is well taken, is the respect that what they're doing is not necessarily that they're going to catch you cheating, because the idea being is that if you're going to spend $98, chances are you're not going to be the kind of person that's going to steal
and people will get
stuff.
mad about that, but it's absolutely true.
Right, because you essentially got skin in the game, and not only that, they know exactly who you are. I mean,
yes, they know what your face looks like. And what I love about Walmart is that, depending on what program you're in, Walmart will be able to tell me the last time I bought avocados because of my debit card and my credit card.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm still, not all the time, but a lot of times a cash kind of guy, and I know they hate that because of the fact that my favorite thing is that if I go to Schnucks, and I'm a Schnucks customer almost every single day. I go to Schnucks, and I don't buy a lot at Schnucks. Usually I'll buy a donut or a bagel or something like that. Matter of fact, I do this right after I get off the air. It's my routine. You and I do the show. I chop it up, then I go to Schnucks. Okay, and they recently changed their self-checkout kiosk machines, and now instead of the old ones where they had a little slot where you put your change in, now they have like a little basket. So I can literally reach into my pocket, empty my pocket full of the change, dump it into the little basket. The thing goes through and sorts all my coins out, tells me I just put in $1.20, and off I go. And I do think that's sort of cool. Okay, moving on to something else. A story that I had on my list, probably for over a week now, which we've never talked about, which got some national attention, but then it just disappeared. This bizarre thing with the guy who was the director of the Little Rock Airport. Are you familiar with this crazy story?
I don't know the story at all.
Man, this is so weird. This guy is the director of the Little Rock Airport. Let me find his name real quick. I thought I had it here in my phone, but I don't. I thought I saved it, but I don't. This guy is the head, or was. He is now dead. And essentially what happened was he
started investigating Hillary Clinton's pork belly trades.
No, and by the way, do you know the name of the airport there in Little Rock is the
Bill Clinton Airport, right?
The Bill and Hillary Clinton, or Hillary and Bill Clinton
Hillary
Airport
was included there too. Yeah.
Okay, let me find this. Little Rock Airport. Okay, apparently, and this is according to the BATFE, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, he was selling illegal guns on the side. And let's see if I can find this. Anyway, he was the director of the airport, and I believe he was making just shy of $300,000 a year. Apparently, he was a well-respected member of the community. He wasn't, and some people go, well, he probably got, he got the job with at Little Rock because he knew the Clintons. No, the interesting thing was this guy was a career airport guy, because this was like the 4th or 5th airport he worked at around the country. He worked his way up, and even at Little Rock, he worked his way up from like an assistant director to the director of the airport. Okay, the guy's name is Brian Malinowski, and he was shot by federal agents. The BATFE agent showed up at his house. He engaged them in a gun battle, and he got shot in the head. He lived for a couple of days, and then he died. And it's like, what? I mean, it's such a bizarre, weird story. And apparently,
and so he was running guns, and then the ATF wanted to shoot him.
Well, that's the controversy because, nowadays you have this situation where, and I think, I am a pro law enforcement kind of guy, but yet I think that it's gotten a little bit out of control. That when you hear these stories about someone who is charged with a nonviolent, crime, and there's been instances of, like we talked about it. What was the one we talked about? Matter of fact, the guy who got arrested. He works for Glenn Beck's news operation called The Blaze, and he's
yeah, you talked about this before.
Right, he's recently been arrested because of the fact that he was in the Capitol, but he was as a journalist, and essentially they told him, they said, show up at the courthouse in flip-flops and shorts, because that way it'll be easier for us to put you in the leg irons and the chain around your waist. Well, what's happened is a lot of times they are going in with warrants, and instead of just, and I do understand that's a very, there's been recent situations where guys who are delivering warrants, police officers who are delivering warrants or eviction notices get shot. But I think the police are overplaying their hand where they show up with the Bearcat. You know what the Bearcat is? The Bearcat.
No, I don't.
The Bearcat's the big armored vehicle, okay?
Oh, okay.
They show up with the Bearcat. The SWAT team shows up.
Just in case.
Yes.
Now, if it was Ferguson, Brad, they'd park them all in a parking lot and just leave them there and not use them.
Well, supposedly the ATF shows up to issue a warrant for his arrest, or actually take him into custody, and he engages in a gun battle with the ATF agents, and they fired back. He was hit in the head. He didn't die right away. He died a couple days later. And they say that, I actually saw this article where they showed pictures of him. He supposedly was very well known in the gun circles, but the illegal gun circles, where he was buying guns that were stolen, and then he was turning them around and selling them, and he was going to gun shows and selling them. And supposedly the pictures they have of him, they have video of him where they had undercover ATF agents working at a gun show, and the undercover ATF agents were buying guns from him. And I'm going like, okay, you're making $350,000 or almost $350,000. Supposedly he owned like 10 rental properties in Little Rock. He's a very highly respected member of the community. What's he doing, making $50-100 selling guns? Because
that's it. Maybe he actually hated his job. Or for a lot of these guys, they want to prove to everybody, mainly themselves, but they want to prove to everybody how smart they are. And a guy like that might think, look, I can break the law. I'm so smart and so creative.
Why do giant modern warships have tiny guns?
This is one of
ATF agent and the executive director of the Little Rock Airport. A redacted affidavit now revealing the ATF was investigating Brian Malinowski after guns in separate crimes across the country were traced back to him. Officials at the airport confirming today that Brian Malinowski has died. He served as the executive director at the airport for the past 8 years. ATF agents went to serve a search warrant at his home Tuesday morning in West Little Rock. At some point, shots were fired, injuring an agent and Malinowski. According to the affidavit given to us by the U.S. Attorney's Office, Malinowski purchased more than 150 guns between May of 2021 and February of this year. The affidavit says at least 6 of those guns were later recovered in separate crimes across the U.S. 3 more were brought in undercover purchases by the ATF. Now, during the course of the investigation, agents learned Malinowski was selling guns without a proper license and without doing the proper paperwork on those that he was selling them to. Through an attorney, the family of Brian Malinowski released a statement calling Malinowski a, quote, gun owner and enthusiast. The statement goes on to say, in part, quote, we do not understand the government's decisions, which led to a dawn raid on a private home and triggered the use of deadly force. For now, we will wait for all of the facts to come out.
I didn't mean to dump that on top of you, but what happened? My phone started to play it, and I just went with it. But anyway, that's
Well, we got a good recap of what you had recapped.
Right, that's one of the Little Rock TV stations, and what you didn't see when I was watching it on my phone, the audio was playing. They showed his house, he don't live in the ghetto. Let me put it that way. He lives in a very nice neighborhood. Why would you do something like that? If you were like making that kind of jack, if you're making close to $300,000 a year, you got rental property, you're doing well for yourself. And once again, he's working for the government, which means he's going to have a gold-plated pension for the rest of his life when he retires, right? I mean,
like I started to say, I think that a lot of the times guys like that will want to prove to everybody how smart they are, how creative they are. And they could say, essentially, look, I'm so smart that I can break the law. Watch me do it, and I won't get caught. And then eventually knowing that, they're rolling the dice and every time they might get caught. And, eventually they do. And, hey, you know what? The gamble didn't work out for them.
I don't understand it. I mean, you read stories like that and you go like, why in the world would he be doing that? Now, once again, I don't have a problem with the guy being a gun enthusiast, nor I don't have a problem if he's a Ferrari enthusiast or a left-handed monkey wrench enthusiast. I mean, people collect and weird things, but I see, and the problem that does for me is it perpetuates the myth that there's all these freaky weirdo gun nuts out there, which quite honestly there are some of them out there. And to the point, matter of fact, I saw a video the other day, and this guy's going like, I got my guns back, and my ex-girlfriend turned me in. They did the red flag law on me, and he's showing he must have 300 guns in his house. I'm going like, what in the world is this?
Well, but the reason why those stories are popular is because left-wing media and left-wing people on social media can point to it and say, look at all these hillbillies and their scary guns. Let's make fun of them. Look at your average Trump voter with all their guns. Bunch of hillbillies. And it makes the left feel good because they're able to laugh at people like that.
Have you ever watched any of the John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana? Have you ever watched any of his congressional hearing videos? Have you ever seen these before?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, they are so funny because he's got that voice and he sounds like a good old boy.
Oh yeah, now I'm familiar with his voice. Yeah, when you do it now, I recognize it. But yeah, I haven't heard his testimony before.
And he had sort of that homespun. Well, now, Judge, I understand that you were recommended as one of the top judges in the country. Is that right? He does that thing.
Yeah.
Sort of
now,
like.
Do you think for him is it kind of a gimmick? Like, is he slow playing people with that?
Oh my God, he ties them in knots. I mean, there's one where he's interviewing this woman who is, and these are mainly, a lot of them are like people who have been recommended to be like federal judges. And he just tied this one woman in knots where he reads some kind of a pleading or something she made, and she refers to this as far as guns and things like that. And then it turns out she didn't write it. So one of her staff members wrote it, but yet she signed it, and he says, because he's an attorney as well too. Well, under the law, aren't you? If you signed it, isn't it your testimony? And then he twists her knots over assault weapons because she's talking. This was some case where she made a decision, and it was assault weapons. And he asked her repeatedly, "Can you define what an assault weapon is?" And she's, "Well, you're Senator," and she never answers. It's just like for a while the Senate hearings where they would ask people like, give me the definition of a woman. And
and Josh Hawley's really good at that too.
Right. And it's like okay, why is it so tough to say? That would be like if someone say, give me a definition of a hamburger. You go like, well, I can't really give you a definition because
it could be plant-based, Brad.
Right.
It could be one of those burgers from Beyond Belief, which has plummeted like 80% in the last year. When it comes to the Kennedy clip, Brad, that you referenced, you know what I say to that, Brad?
What's that?
I'm going to have to check that out.
I'll see if I can find. I think
I'll add that to my list. I'll add it to my list of shows to not watch.
I think the judge he's talking to is a lady. I think her last name is Maldonado. Check.
Candy Maldonado, an outfielder for the Giants in the mid '80s and the Dodgers too. Happy opening day, Brad. I know you don't like the Cardinals anymore because you're a traitor, but happy opening day.
John, wasn't opening day yesterday or was it Wednesday?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, John, have you ever watched the original Jack Reacher movie?
No.
You would love the Jack Reacher movie because there's a thing he does in the movie which is pretty funny because of the fact that when he's asked what his name is by this guy who wants to beat him up and he gives the name and he explains that it's always he always gives the name of some shortstop for the White Sox or something like that.
Oh, really? Like Louis Aparicio
right.
or something.
Which is, anytime anybody asks his name, he always gives this guy's name. I'll see if I can find the quote. Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?